So the next item is an update from CNSC staff on Cameco Corporation Decommissioned Beaverlodge Mine and Mill site as outlined in CMD 14M60 and 14M60.A. So we have, we know Mr. Mooney is online. Is Mr. Keith Cunningham is still there? And I'm told here that we may have Mr. Christoph from Saskatchewan.
I'm here.
Ah, great. So everybody is on. So, Mr. Newland, over to you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Commission. My name is David Newland, for the record. With me are Jean Leclerc, Director of the Uranium Mines and Mills Division, Robert Dwyer, Project Officer within the same division, and the rest of the CNSC licensing team, what's left of them, for the project. In April 2013, a public hearing was held to discuss the license renewal for the decommissioned Beaverlodge mine and mill site, which is managed by Cameco Corporation. The Commission was updated on the process that was followed to select remedial options for the site, the final options that were selected, how performance would be evaluated, and the process for transferring properties into the provincial institutional control program. Over 20 supporting studies were completed since 2009, which have contributed to the development of this path forward, which concluded that the licensee identified reasonable options to support the natural recovery of this site. The remedial options that were selected were considered to be good engineering practices and are expected to result in localized improvements in water quality. However, due to the legacy nature of the mining impacts and the size of the Beaverlodge Lake, there were no practical remedial options that would be able to meaningfully accelerate the natural recovery of the Beaverlodge Lake. In May of 2013, the Commission accepted the path forward and issued Cameco a 10-year license to proceed with the remedial work and continued management of the properties. CNSC staff committed to come back to the Commission to provide an update in 2014, specifically on defined performance objectives and actual performance indicators for each property, and a property-by-property timeline estimates for their eligibility to transfer into institutional control. The following presentation is a summary of the information requested. I'll now turn the presentation over to Mr. Leclerc.
My name is still Jean Leclerc, and I'm still the Director of the Uranium Mines and Mills Division. Unlike some of the legacy mines in northern Saskatchewan, such as Gunner and Laredo, that will be appearing before the Commission later this year, that were abandoned, the Beaverlodge site was actually decommissioned to the standards of the day from 1983 to 1985. The remedial work that Cameco is undertaking currently are enhancements and improvements to what was previously done to ensure that long-term risks have been addressed and managed such that minimal effort is required to manage the sites under the Provincial Institutional Control Program. I think it's important to remind everyone that the historical mining practices that took place during the operation of this mine site were very different from those you would see in a mine today. Environmental protection standards have come a long way, and many of the practices of handling mine waste would not be acceptable today. I would also like to assure the Commission that the risk of a tailings dam failure, such as the one that occurred at Mount Polley, is not an issue at the Beaverlodge site, as there are no dams on the Beaverlodge site, as the tailings were deposited in natural water bodies during operation, which I wouldn't say necessarily is much better, but there is no dams, so we don't have to worry about potential dam failures. I will now ask Rob Dwyer to continue with the CNSC staff's presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. My name is Robert Dwyer, and I'm the project officer responsible for managing the licensing and compliance activities associated with the regulation of the decommissioned Beaverlodge mine and mill site. I will begin my presentation by providing a site overview that includes a brief history of the file. I will also provide a status update for the activities completed at the site since Cameco's license was renewed in April of 2013. As Mr. Newland mentioned, we're here today to provide an overview of the information that was requested by the Commission, including clarity on performance objectives and indicators, and the timeline for institutional control transfer eligibility. Finally, I'll present CNSC staff's conclusions. I will start with the site overview. As shown in the map on the left-hand side of this slide, the decommissioned Beaverlodge mine and mill site is located in the northwest corner of Saskatchewan and is approximately 8 kilometers from Uranium City. In the map on the right, the Beaverlodge licensed areas are outlined in red. Historical mining activities in these areas were conducted within 2 watersheds, the Ace Creek watershed and the Fulton Creek watershed. The Ace Creek watershed shown in light blue and the Fulton Creek watershed is shown in dark blue. Both of these watersheds feed into Beaverlodge Lake. There are 5 main licensed areas, including Hab, Dabina, Bulger-Verna, Lower Ace Creek, and the Tailings Management Area. There are also 3 smaller licensed areas, Eagle and 2 Martin Lake areas, which have a relatively small footprint. Each of these areas is a compilation of a number of individual properties. There are a total of 65 individual properties that make up these licensed areas. Eldorado Nuclear Limited, a federal Crown corporation, operated the site from 1952 to 1982. During the early operations, comprehensive environmental protection regulations did not exist. As an example, the site operated without effluent treatment process for approximately 25 years. Decommissioning was completed in 1985 following the plan approved by both provincial and federal regulatory bodies. The approval noted that the site was expected to recover in the long term. Since 1985, the site has been in a state of monitoring and maintenance. In 1988, Eldorado Nuclear Limited and the Saskatchewan Mining Development Corporation, a provincial Crown corporation, merged to form Cameco. As a result of this merger, Cameco was assigned the responsibility of maintaining and monitoring the site, and Canada Eldor Investment Incorporation, a subsidiary of the federal Crown Corporation, Canada Development Investment Corporation, was to provide funding for all the site activities. With Cameco's current 10-year license, a plan has been developed to transfer the site back to the province through Saskatchewan's institutional control program. During the license renewal hearing in 2009, the Commission issued Cameco a 3-year license to develop a clear remediation plan for the site. From 2009 to 2013, annual updates were presented to the Commission, which provided details on CNSC staff's compliance activities and Cameco's progress with the development of a remediation plan. In April of 2013, the final remediation plan was presented to the Commission. Over 20 supporting studies were completed since 2009, which have contributed to the development of the path forward, which concluded that the licensee identified reasonable options to support the natural recovery of the site. The remedial options that were selected were considered to be good engineering practices and are expected to result in localized improvements in water quality. However, due to the legacy mining impacts and the size of Beaverlodge Lake, there were no practical remedial options that would be able to meaningfully accelerate the natural recovery of that lake. In May of 2013, the Commission accepted the path forward and issued Cameco a 10-year license to proceed with the remedial work and continued management of the properties. CNSC staff committed to providing the defined performance objectives and actual performance indicators for each property, and property-by-property timeline estimates for institutional control transfer eligibility during an update in 2014. As described in last year's license renewal hearing, Cameco will be implementing and assessing 4 main remedial options during the current license term, including the Bolger-Verna stream diversion, plugging boreholes, replacing caps on vertical mine openings, and covering accessible waste rock and tailings areas with elevated gamma levels. The following slides will provide a brief status update on each option. In addition, CNSC staff have provided an update on a recent surface subsidence that occurred in the Lower Ace Creek area. The first remedial option I will discuss is a stream diversion at the Bolger-Verna area. The purpose of the stream diversion was to re-establish the flow path between Zora and Verna lakes to minimize contact with the waste rock pile. In 2014, staff reviewed and accepted the detailed design of the stream diversion. The 2014 activities focused on physical and chemical characterization of the waste rock pile. The construction of the stream diversion will be completed during the summer of 2015. CNSC staff inspected the characterization work that was completed at the site in July of 2014 and verified that it was being completed as described in the application. Moving forward, CNSC staff will continue to verify that Cameco is meeting its commitments through compliance inspections. The second option is plugging boreholes. All boreholes on the site are to be plugged to prevent the potential for groundwater outflow to the surface. As of April 2013, all identified boreholes on the Beaverlodge site have been sealed. Cameco also committed to seal any additional boreholes found on the site during the completion of their remedial work. During the summer of 2014, 2 additional boreholes were located in the Bolger-Verna area and will be sealed by the end of October of this year. These boreholes were not flowing, but will be sealed as a preventative measure. CNSC staff will continue to verify that all boreholes are sealed during compliance inspections. The third option was to replace caps on vertical mine openings. This includes shafts and ventilation raises. The current concrete caps on the vertical mine openings will be replaced with new engineered caps with established designs to ensure long-term safety of the site. All caps on vertical mine openings will be replaced by the year 2018. During the summer of 2014, the conditions of the foundations surrounding the existing caps were assessed by Cameco. CNSC staff observed these conditions during the July 2014 inspection and verified that there were no signs of significant deterioration. Moving forward, CNSC staff will review the proposed shaft cap designs and monitor their installation through compliance inspections. The fourth and last option was to cover accessible waste rock and tailings on the site with elevated gamma levels. For the purpose of reducing gamma exposure, areas with elevated gamma levels that are reasonably accessible to the public will be covered in accordance with the as low as reasonably achievable principle, or ALARA. Cameco is scheduled to perform a site-wide gamma scan in September, so they just recently completed it. Once the gamma scan is complete, Cameco will assess the results and submit a final report outlining where remedial work may be required. To date, CNSC staff have reviewed Cameco's gamma scan procedure, and Cameco has responded satisfactorily to all comments provided. CNSC staff will review the final report provided by Cameco to verify that the accepted plan was followed and that adequate measures are taken to reduce gamma levels where required. CNSC staff will also independently verify the results of this survey through the CNSC's compliance verification program. In addition to the remedial options, CNSC staff would also like to provide a brief update on a surface subsidence which occurred in the Lower Ace Creek area. In October of 2013, Cameco reported a subsidence near a surface crown pillar associated with the historical mine workings. A surface crown pillar is a rock mass situated above the uppermost drift in a mine, which serves to ensure the stability of the mine workings and the surface. The subsidence was backfilled and access was restricted using temporary metal fence and signage, and Uranium City residents were notified. During the July 2014 annual inspection, it was noted that the backfill material had partially eroded and subsided. Cameco's continued remediation plan includes completing a geotechnical and geophysical evaluation of the area to determine the extent of the voids, crown pillar, and the overburden thickness. The results of these evaluations will provide the basis for further remediation and/or monitoring. CNSC staff will review the final remediation plan and verify its implementation during future compliance inspections. CNSC staff have reviewed the actions taken to date and find them acceptable. In the record of proceedings issued in May of 2013, the Commission requested that CNSC staff provide further clarification on the performance objectives and actual performance indicators for the decommissioned Beaverlodge mine and mill site. In response to the Commission's request, Cameco has further developed and clarified their performance objectives and indicators. The overall intent of how the properties will be evaluated has not changed since the April 2013 license renewal hearing. The performance objectives for the Beaverlodge licensed properties is that they be safe, secure, stable, and improving. Safe. The site is safe for general public access. This objective is to ensure that the long-term safety is maintained. Secure. There must be confidence that the long-term risks have been assessed by a qualified person and are acceptable. Stable and improving. Environmental conditions on and downstream of the decommissioned properties are stable and continue to naturally recover as predicted. Performance indicators will be used to verify that the performance objectives are being met. The performance indicators used to determine if a site is safe and secure include ensuring that there are acceptable gamma levels, boreholes are plugged, caps on vertical mine openings are stable, crown pillars have a low risk of causing a surface subsidence, and the site is free from historical mining debris. The stable and improving objective is more relevant to monitoring water quality. In order to verify that conditions on and downstream of the properties are stable and improving, Cameco will continue to monitor water quality to confirm that the remedial options are effective in assisting the natural recovery in accordance with the modeled predictions. Each performance indicator has an associated regulatory acceptance criteria. When all of the performance indicators are met, the properties will be considered safe, secure, stable, and improving, and the performance objectives for the site will be satisfied. CNSC staff find the performance objectives and performance indicators for the Beaverlodge site acceptable. In order to better explain the stable and improving objective, the following example has been provided. As discussed, the indicator for if water quality is stable and improving is that the monitoring data trends be within the modeled predictions. The modeled predictions have an upper and lower bounds, which were developed using realistic high and low values of the model assumptions. If the measured data is found to be within the predicted range or lower, they will be considered stable and improving. If the monitoring data trends fall above the predicted range, CNSC staff will require Cameco to complete a reassessment of the site risks. The example provided is the uranium water concentration predictions for the outflow of the Ace Creek watershed that flows into Beaverlodge Lake. For illustrative purposes, the actual measured data and the trend line has been included to show how the monitoring data trends fall within the predicted range over time. CNSC staff will continue to verify that water quality trends are within the model predictions. The other item requested by the Commission was the property-by-property timeline estimates for institutional control transfer eligibility. The institutional control program is legislated and managed by the province of Saskatchewan, and it is designed for the long-term monitoring and maintenance of decommissioned mine sites. The program consists of two primary components, the Institutional Control Registry and the Institutional Control Funds. The registry maintains a formal record of the transferred properties and manages the funding for any required monitoring and maintenance work. The funds, which are provided in advance upfront by the applicant, pay for the long-term monitoring and maintenance associated, pay for the long-term monitoring and maintenance, including any unforeseen events. In order to transfer a property into the institutional control program, Cameco must first submit an application which will be reviewed by CNSC staff and the province of Saskatchewan. If the application is accepted by both parties, CNSC staff will recommend that the Commission exempt the properties from CNSC license. After the properties are exempt from CNSC license, the province of Saskatchewan will accept them into the institutional control program. In 2009, 5 of the Beaverlodge properties were transferred into the institutional control program following this process. Cameco has provided a table titled Institutional Control Transfer Timeline, which was provided in the annex of the Commission Member Document 14-M60 and describes when each individual property will be eligible for transfer into the institutional control. As there are 65 individual properties, a simplified chart has been provided that is grouped by area to better illustrate the timeline for when these applications to transfer the sites are expected. CNSC staff and the province of Saskatchewan have reviewed the timeline and find that it is acceptable. CNSC staff would like to close this presentation with the following remarks. Cameco has made acceptable progress to date and continues to engage local residents on the status of the site. CNSC staff conclude that Cameco's plan for completing the remedial work, verifying its effectiveness, and transferring properties into the institutional control is acceptable. And CNSC staff will verify that the properties are safe, secure, stable, and improving prior to recommending that the Commission exempt them from CNSC licensing. I will now turn the presentation back to Mr. Newland.
Thank you, Rob. That completes our presentation, and we're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.